goes forward. What a finish. What a test. Russell thinks about the kick again, looks for the pass. He found it last week at the start. Doesn't do it now. Ryan. Gibson Park. Keenan. Cona's waiting. Keenan. They've done it. The story written as the Lions would have wished for now. What a finish. Wilson's desperate here and Toji arrives. What do they know?
In Melbourne, Australia, over the weekend. So much to talk about, so much to cover. Curry Cup kicking off this weekend. Not by myself. Hugh Griffin, all the way in the UK. Vickers Miranda, all the way in South Africa, in Russia, in China. We don't know where he is, but he'll give us some intel. Griffin, how's it going? How's England treating you this weekend?
It's going okay, man. It's going all right. It's a nice, quiet weekend at the moment. Not so much rugby on at the moment, so it's taking some time to focus on some other things.
Yeah. We're getting a break from too much footy. We've had a lot of footy these past couple of weeks. I would say 5 weeks of rugby, back to back, non-stop action. Obviously, South Africa with the Barbarians, with Italy, and then closing it off against Georgia, New Zealand with France. Big talking points there that we've covered previously, and then the Lions series, which has been one-sided for the past 5 to 6 weeks now. Vickers, how are things? How are you doing? How was the weekend?
Yeah, good. It's good to be back. Yeah, weekend has been chilled. Just preparing for some games tomorrow and Tuesday. Just Hugh, well done on the interview at Swiss. It was a great interview, mate. Keep doing a good job there. And yeah.
Yes, 100%. If you guys haven't seen it, you can follow Hugh Griffin. He had a lovely conversation with former Lions, former Springbok. Now he's coaching the South African women's rugby team. He's taking them to the World Cup. Sways to Brain. That was a lovely chat there. Go check it out. You can find it on Hugh's timeline on Twitter. And I think he's also got his HG Rugby on YouTube as well. Guys, without wasting any time, I think we'll start off with the nitty-gritty, starting off with news making headlines this week. Vic, massive weekend of rugby news, some juicy performances to unpack regarding Australia and the Lions. But first up, Salman Murat is being compared to Bakis Botha by Nick Mallet. What are your thoughts?
Wait a minute. Yeah, no. I don't know. Yeah, you look, he's got the resemblance, but in terms of being a Bakis, I don't know, mate. Because we all know Bakis was hardly injured. Bakis was always probably the hardest player we've actually had in terms of those locks. I think he's even harder than Eben. So for Nick to compare someone to Bakis, it's a big stretch for me, mate.
Big stretch. Hugh, your thoughts on that?
What was the actual quote? How is he being compared? Is it just they have the same dentist? What?
Apparently, physicality and the work rate and the amount of rucks he tends to hit during a game, which goes unseen, quote unquote, from a Nick Mallet.
Well, he does the unseen work. Is one of those great things that you can say about rugby. Like you can say, like, "Oh, this player had a quietly excellent game." The translation is, I can say this and I can sound really clever, but you can't challenge me on it because it's unseen. So you can't go back and check the tapes.
But that's the thing. That's the thing about this. We saw Bakis because rucks were clear. So that's the difference. We saw Bakis. We don't see someone. That's it.
Oh, geez. Fair enough. Not to stray away from the conversation. Interesting one. Former British and Irish Lions winner Lawrence Delalio is backing a Lions tour to France. We've had too many murmurs and rumors about this one, Hugh. But what are your thoughts regarding Lions traveling to France?
I think it would turn nasty. I think it would be commercially extremely successful. Look, guys, you can get a train from the UK to France. Obviously, it would be huge. We know the crowds. But honestly, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, Britain and France have been mostly at war with each other for the last 1,000 years. Okay? If you think it turns nasty with Razzie making tapes, you think it turns nasty with Joe Schmidt and the Wallabies, or what the things that the New Zealand Herald likes to write, it's nothing. Trust me, it's nothing between how nasty it would turn between the British and Irish Lions and the French. Honestly, I think it would be too big. Commercially, I think it would be a guaranteed success. Rugby-wise, I don't see the Lions beating Toulouse in a midweek fixture. Do you? Or Bordeaux? It would be too much. I think it would be too much. I think it's one of these be careful what you wish for type things.
Wrestling, WrestleMania, tables, ladders, and chairs. Is that what you are promising us if British and Irish Lions would travel to France? I say yes. Let's have it then. I mean, that's what we're looking for, right? We've been looking for spectacles. We've been looking for off the field, on field. We've been looking for this. So I think it would be perfect to kind of take rugby, the British and Irish Lions, and take them all the way to France. Vickers, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, it actually would be interesting. To be honest, it would be interesting. I know up north they regard history as one of the biggest things about in their spectacle in terms of rugby. So because the British and Irish have never toured up north, chances are I don't know if it would happen. But for me, I think it would be interesting to see. Why not? Because I mean, we always said in the Southern Hemisphere, maybe touring, including, I was actually even thinking Argentina as well. So why not? I think those are the kind of things that will obviously just innovation and changing the sport and trying to get more interest. Like you have said, in terms of commercially, it definitely would be viable, but just the other things and the nitty-gritties, then it would be, interesting to see.
No, fair enough. Yeah. Understandable. Wales have finally gotten or acquired a new coach. We've been talking about this for weeks on end, for months on end, but now they have Steve Tandy. How do you pronounce this guy? Tandy. Will lead the team into 2027. Big question. Do we get to see the players, Hugh, that we haven't seen in Welsh rugby over the past 3 to 4 years? I mean, the guys that we've seen before in the 2019-2021 era, some of them were left behind by Warren Gatland. Warren Gatland wanted to start over, removing or not selecting the older players. I mean, some of those players are in their 30s, late 20s, early 30s. I mean, no one is over 35, for example. A Ross Moriarty, for example, has been left out, what's his name? Basham has also been left out as well. I mean, do we get to see now all those players coming into the fold again and making Wales rugby great again?
Look, there'll always be new faces when a new coach comes in, but I don't think that there'll be that much change, purely because there isn't that many players to choose from. I think Gatland's, okay, he may have moved on from a few guys, but in the meantime, a lot of those guys have retired. And then, he cycles through pretty much everyone. I don't think there's any centre in Wales who hasn't been capped in the last 5 years because he's been searching for a solution. I'm sure we'll see some change. But honestly, I'm not sure how much. I'm not sure how much difference. When Matt Sherratt came in, because he's the Cardiff coach, a lot of Cardiff players got brought in and the spine of the team was Cardiff. So that will probably finish. Maybe, it's tempting to say that it might be more Ospreys because Steve Tandy has got a history as an Ospreys coach, but he hasn't coached them for 7 years now. So none of the players that he was coaching are still there. So maybe not on that front, but there'll be a change. But honestly, I don't think there's that much depth in Wales for him to really have much variety.
Okay, no, fair enough. News from down under, not even down under, in New Zealand. Anton Leonard-Brown has also about to take his sabbatical for next year. So he will be joining Adisavia in Japanese League One. But he'll be back with the Chiefs in 2020, beginning of 2027. Rumor has it that Steve Bothwick may be the biggest winner in this Lions tour so far. England have 3 fly-offs. Obviously, the conversations now are moving along the fact that certain teams, Ireland, England, will have benefited more from this tour than your Scottish and their Welsh counterparts for this tour because, well, they would have experienced playing down under, gain and gain and obviously work out as much as possible about the Australian team as well. But I think Australia can hold their heads up high in this second test. But nonetheless, Curry Cup kicked off this weekend, and Bunnings NPC will kick off next week, Thursday. We'll touch on the Curry Cup a bit later on. But first, main topics. Australia losing the second test in Melbourne. 90,000 people at the MCG. And that stands for Melbourne Cricket Ground. MCG. Huw, your thoughts on, I don't know if we should touch on the other game during the week on Tuesday, but I think we saw what we've seen on the midweek games, but we thought Australia, last weekend we spoke about how Australia needs to come back, what selections Joe Schmidt needs to make for this game. And he did do that. He did go 6-2 split, as Jade alluded to last week. But what did you see in the second test that stood out for you on a tactical side from the British and Irish Lions, on a tactical side from the Australians? What stood out for you? And yeah, they've gone 2-0. So the series is practically over. Dead rubber next weekend. But what have you seen? So what did you see in this weekend's game?
I saw the immediate impact of Valentini and Skelton on the team. There was a lot of pressure put on Valentini coming in to give the pack a bit of, what word do you want to use? Credibility, if you're being harsh. I thought Skelton was actually the most visual change, not just in terms of the grunts that he brought in the carry, but also in terms of the niggle, slowing the game down, getting under the opposition skin, what he's good at, throwing a few cheap shots here and there in the nicest possible way. And I thought that when those two went off, the Wallabies pack disintegrated to an extent. I thought the pack from the Australians was cooked by 60 minutes. They couldn't hold their own at scrum time. They couldn't, someone like Wilson at number 8, who I think has been brilliant all season, not just in a green and gold shirt, but also at club level in Super Rugby. I thought he was done. Every time he carried the ball, he was losing 2 meters, not gaining meters. What I think for me, if you take the emotion out of it, which is difficult to do because of the context of the occasion, but if you do try and take the emotion out of it, what we saw from the Wallabies was an 8-minute super purple patch where they scored 3 tries, kind of out of nowhere, and had everybody shocked. But other than that, it was kind of very business as usual. And you always felt that the Wallabies needed another score. When they got to 23 points, they always needed another score, which is unusual because normally when at test level, when you start getting into the 20s, a lot of teams are making the game safe from there and not giving up that lead. But with Australia, they always give up the lead. How many times have we seen, if you go back, them playing against the top nations, that most teams, when you get into the 20s, the game is safe. But with Australia, how many times do we see them score 20, 25 points and still lose? Too often. And, we'll maybe talk about some of the defence from the Australians, but this is just a team that is used to conceding 30 plus points. And so when they got to 23, you didn't feel the game was safe. They had a man advantage. They scored their tries. As soon as the Lions got the man back, they scored 2 tries themselves. The game was back within a score going into half-time, and you always felt that it was inevitable that the Lions were going to be touching 30 points by the end of the game. So for the Wallabies to only score 3 points post the 30-minute mark, it wasn't enough, and you always knew it wasn't going to be enough. Unfortunately, check the tape, Scoop. How long have we been talking about this? How long have I been on the show talking about the Wallabies conceding too many? And it's just not new news at this point, unfortunately. It's as a nation, as a team, the emphasis isn't there on defence. And every time the Lions got into their 22, you felt they were going to score, and that's what happened.
No, 100%, 110%. Vickers, I'm bringing you in because I've got a very sharp memory. Last year, we spoke about, actually, you mentioned on this space, on this pod, Australia needs a very good defensive coach because the Springboks put 37 or 30-something odd points against them. Was it 37-0 or 37-7 in Brisbane last year? Something along those lines. And your main point that you brought up was Australia needs a defensive coach in that after that fixture in the Rugby Championship. Now we are a year later, and we're still discussing the same point about Australia needing a good defensive coach. What you saw something very positive from the game yesterday, very good 30 minutes of rugby from Australia. You even credited who's the former coach again, Dave Rennie, that we haven't seen Australia play this good since Dave Rennie. And your thoughts now on the defensive side of things, and also what is it that they did well, Australia, that made you feel that, man, this was a good performance for those first 30 minutes of the first half?
Look, I think, Scoop, when I look at what we were discussing last year, it was whenever a team has the ball against Australia, it's almost going to result into points. And I think that's what we were seeing yesterday, because the reason they were up, getting up in terms of the scoreboard and points, is because they kept the ball and they had the ball most of the time. And what we're discussing now with Huw, same thing, is that when Australia had the ball, they were dominant. They were getting just at 1 meter over that vantage line. And it kept on, and they kept on kicking in the right areas. They kept on doing the right things. And that's what, for me, I felt they did well. But again, it's because they had the possession and the territory. So maybe that's a stat that we can discuss, is that how much possession did Australia have in that first half? Because as soon as we came out, they came out in the second half, things changed. And once you start putting them under pressure in terms of your attack and making them, what we normally say is ask questions. Once you start asking questions, you almost feel like it's going to result in points. And I mean, this British and Irish had that ball in, I think it was about 4 minutes to go when they had that scrum and they played. For them to keep the ball for that long and just a team allowing them to run at them, it shows that there are a few cracks. There are a few cracks, especially defensively, that they need to sort out. But again, for me, I think the reason I made that comment yesterday, Scoop, is because I felt they were so solid on those carries, and they were playing smart, and they were playing smart rugby. They were playing in the right areas. And like I said, we Eddie Jones' era, we didn't see much of that. And after, obviously, Eddie Jones, Joe Schmidt took over, but still, we didn't see that last season. But now we saw it in this test. We didn't see the first test. So it's a matter of what is he going to do going into the Rugby Championship? Is he going to continue with the same approach, or was this approach just for the Lions? So for me, I think the most important is when they have ball in hand, they're more effective. But as soon as they don't have that ball, I don't think the coaching staff would be happy.
So then, Vickers, do you think they need to get a defensive coach at this point?
at this point, Scoop, they need to get a defensive coach. They need to get a specialist combat coach. The reason I'm saying combat coach is because you need a stopping power on defense. You need to be able to have presence on defense. And most of the time when players are running, yes, it's nice to chop tackle players. I promise you, I'm a firm advocate for chopping players because you cut the player down and it goes down. But there are times where the chopping has to stop. It's a front on stopping power, and that's it. So I feel the defense coach would definitely help, combat coach, and then a breakdown specialist.
Oh, fair. I like that you bring the chopping of tackles because you posted something in our conversation earlier as well about how Australians are mostly targeting the ball, which means that when at the point of contact, they're upright, right? So for me personally, if I'm a defensive person or defensive coach in a situation like that, yes, because I'll let you jump in just now. If I'm a defensive coach in that situation, you speak about what's this thing, a combat coach, right? If I'm upright, I want to stop the movement. I don't want you to be gaining ground because the clips that he posted also show that as soon as a Lions player catches the ball and runs towards his opponent, and the opponent, which is a Wallaby, is targeting the ball, by the time they make contact, I'm on the front foot, he's on the back foot. And that means that I have purchased or I'm starting to gain ground and move 2 to 4 meters before I go to ground. But if I'm chopping and I'm trying to nullify the Lions from gaining ground or gaining purchase or any territory, if I'm chopping, he falls down within a meter. But if we're both upright, I feel that there's more ascendancy, there's more chances of us driving forward and support players coming to join me if I'm on my feet and just driving me further. And I feel like if you're gonna go for that ball, it has to be a stop tackle. It has to have power. You have to gain that dominance of driving the ball carrier backwards. And if you don't do that, and you saw with Australia, they had McDermott in the back line when they lost Harry Potter. So now, size on size, you have Hugh Jones running at McDermott. I mean, I think Hugh Jones wins that 10 out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, that contest, right? If you're upright. And unfortunately, McDermott is not the guy who you expect to be defending in midfield, for example. But anyway, Hugh, I want you to jump in as well, and then Vickers, you can give us the answers.
Yeah, it was just something that when I was looking back at the tries, there was a common theme. Oh, sorry, go. Yeah, Can
I just quickly make a point?
Yeah, sure. Vickers, I think we've lost him. Yeah, Hugh, jump in there while Vickers is trying to connect, I think.
Okay, so yeah, it's just something that I noticed when I was reviewing the tries, looking back at them.
Can you hear me?
Are you with us, mate?
Yeah, we can hear you, Vickers. Speak or forever hold your peace. Now, I think he's lost connection. But yeah, once he jumps back on, then Hugh, you'll just give him his time to share his point as well.
Okay, yeah. So, like I said, when I was reviewing the tries, I noticed a trend of the Wallaby backs in particular. I'm talking the outside backs, the fullback, the wingers, were going high. You know, you first notice it on the Tommy Freeman carry in the build-up to the Tom Curry try, where I think it's Wright initially goes high on him, and then Jorgensen comes to join it, and I think attempts the choke, and they also go high. But Freeman spins and then kind of protects the ball and then drives, and then Keenan comes in with the carry assist, and they make 10, 15 meters. So the what they're trying to do there has failed in that they haven't stopped the ball carrier, they haven't turned the ball over, and actually because they've both gone high, they're not in a position of power to be able to stop him, and they fail to bring him to the ground. And then later on as well, on Hugh Jones's try, the one that you mentioned, Jorgensen again goes high. Hugh Jones kind of overpowers him, and then McDermott comes in as well with a pretty limp attempt. And if you look, it looks worse in slow motion, but like his body position, he's never going to win that collision. And he's kind of not really had any effects there. And then finally, with Ty Burns' try, James Lowe brushes off Ikitau. Ikitau again, going trying to tackle him with his hands, putting his hands on his shoulders. Lowe just brushes him aside. And then you've got Burn. Ty Burn is there. He's got the touchline. He's maybe 1.5 meters in from the touchline. And he's got Jorgensen is trying to recover, Jorgensen's gone in to try and cover Lowe, who's been missed by Ikitau. And then he's got to bounce out again to try and get Burn and he's kind of doesn't have an effect in there. Then you've got Wright coming across, and then you've got Fraser McWright is as well trying to come in. So you've got the touchline and 3 Wallabies defenders, and Ty Burn just goes through all of them and gets over the try line. So I understand the logic of taking the, going up right in the tackle to target the ball and try and win the collision there. However, in these circumstances, 3 times the Wallabies have done it, and it's led to a try conceded.
Exactly. Vickers, are you there?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
So, that's exactly, I like what you was talking about. Now, that's the difference that we have in terms of coaching, is that once you have a backline player running at speed on the outside, that time for ref tackle is completed. It's done. You have to chop tackle. the ref tackle and the close tackle of the ball, it only happens in that first pod, second pod situation when the forwards are fronting up, when it's before the forwards get the momentum. But once that ball is pulled out of the back and the backs are starting to run fast, the time for you trying to go for the ball is over. That's when the chop tackle becomes more effective. So it's a matter of just understanding the coaching's team, obviously understanding that if a backline player is already running at pace, it's impossible to try and rep the ball because his legs are free. He's gonna pump his legs. All players are strong. So for me, it's a matter of it's that forward pack to stop the forwards giving the momentum to the backs.
Fair enough. Speaking of chop tackles, Griffin, Vickers, a lot of talk about law throughout this whole Lions series, throughout this Lions tour down under in Australia. Your guys' take, or do you guys actually, let me put it this way, let's make it more interesting. Do you guys have any questions for me regarding the officiating of these Lions games in Australia?
Yeah, I'll throw something at you, Scoop. For me, the biggest question that I have is obviously the try that was scored yesterday by Dan Sheehan. There's still a lot of murmurs about it. The way that I understood it is that in the act of scoring, you're allowed to dive over the player. But is that in the law, though? Because I've never seen it.
No, it doesn't say you're allowed to. Man, I think the difference now, Vickers, this is a very tricky one. It's a very tricky one. It's brought up a lot of conversations. It's brought up a lot of confusion as well to a lot of people. In the act of scoring a try, Vickers, let me put it like this. I'm running down the touchline in the tram lines between the 5 meter and the touchline. And you are coming across from your, let's say, your goalposts. And my head is down, I'm focused, and I dive 3 meters before the try line as you are cross covering, almost like a T-bone kind of tackle, right? And if I'm diving 3 meters, I'm in the air, I'm 3 meters short, but because of my speed and power and leaping, so my momentum is kind of taking me over the try line, and you make a tackle while I'm in the air, but I dot down the ball. For me, that's diving to score a try. But if we are now facing each other We are in front of each other. We are 5 meters. I am 5 meters from the try line. You are on the try line. I tap the ball on the 5 meter line. I charge towards you. You are also charging towards me to make a tackle. But then if I jump over you, are you not trying to make an attempted tackle? And I jump over you to score a try? I think for me that is when it becomes illegal, because now I'm leaping, I'm jumping, I'm diving, whatever word you want to use. I'm still avoiding a tackle, making it dangerous for me to act in that manner to score a try. So for me, that's my interpretation. But if I don't know, man, some people think or say can interpret it differently, which means Piadri as well interpreted differently in terms of the act of trying to score a try. So, which means you can jump over. I mean, we saw Peter Gus Sawekula jumping or hurdling over Aaron Smith. We saw, was it Johnny May in England in 2021, jumping over an Italian player, and everyone, including the Welsh former referee now, what's his name? Nigel Owen, saying that the act of jumping over a player to score a try or jumping over a tackle to score a try is illegal, right? But now they've put in so many words into that, people get confused. They've like 2 or 3 points that have been put into that discussion that makes it more confusing for anybody. So I don't know what Huw, your thoughts are, because English is a language that is ambiguous, unfortunately. Talk to me.
Yeah, now I've seen people like trying to argue, saying it wasn't a jump, it was a dive, and I'm like, guys, what are we doing here? What is? Are we having a grown-up discussion? Really, trying to argue a difference between a jump and a dive? Look, my point is that this law about not jumping over tacklers exists supposedly on safety grounds, as in it's dangerous to jump over tacklers. That's what people tell me. So if you take what Dan Sheehan did and move it back just straight backwards 2 meters, and say he lands an inch, 2 inches short of the try line, so doesn't actually score. In that case, he is penalised because he has done something dangerous, something that is deemed to be subjecting the people around him to a dangerous situation, and that is not tolerated. But because he landed over the try line, that then is no longer a consideration. You know, it doesn't stand up to any scrutiny at all. And look, we spoke about it during the Six Nations with the Blair Murray incident of him jumping over a tackler. And I made the point of we need to be able to distinguish between jumping into a tackle, which is dangerous, and jumping to avoid a tackle, which if you're avoiding contact, again, it's how is it dangerous if you're avoiding contact? My issue, I don't really have a view on whether or not this try should have stood. To be honest with you, I don't have an opinion on that. My issue is that the writing of the law of having this loophole, let's call it what it is. It's a loophole of if you happen to land over the try line, then an act that is deemed to be dangerous anywhere else on the pitch is deemed not dangerous.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
100%. That's exactly my point. Because if you are jumping to avoid a tackle anywhere on the field, it should just be dangerous, period. Because the fact that now it's very gray, just because you're over the try line, now all of a sudden the danger elements fall out of the way. It doesn't really make sense. Vickers, are you happy? Any other incidences in this game that you thought?
Good. I'm good. I think. Yeah. Look, you guys have answered it. I think that's the thing, Scoop. It's the gray area, man. The gray area is causing a lot of wishy-washy in rugby, because we all know, and I think that's why I would love for just to clean up those laws a little bit, make them black and white, so that there is no opportunity for interpretation, because we all interpret things differently.
100%. Because at the end of the day, you can come up with your interpretation, as Vuyo Zanga. Hugh Griffin can come up with his own interpretation. I can come up with my own interpretation, which is how most of the refereeing is done as well. Because then different people will agree with Vuyo and disagree with him in certain things. Different people will agree with Hugh and differ with him in certain things. Different people will agree with me and also differ with me in certain things. So now, at the end of the day, we all trying to talk around the issue instead of actually trying to clean up the issue, as you've stated here, Vickers, as well. I want to touch on some of the standout players during this game from yesterday. I mean, we spoke of Skelton, we spoke of Valentini. I mean, there's another guy, Gleason, who came on for the Wallabies as well, probably trying to inject a bit of strength, a bit of power within their ball carries. There were moments, I think the moment for me where the Wallabies lost it was when who's this new boy at number 13? There was a breakout or breakaway play, and he had the ball. He just needed to pass, and there was an English player who just tackled him, and the score would have gone. Yeah, the score would have gone to 31 points or something, 31-17 at that point or something like that. And when he failed to make that last pass at the end because they had numbers to burn, but also number two, the fact that Australian backline just on a defensive element, are really, really poor. There's no connection on the defense for their backs, and every time the Lions backline had the ball, I mean they put them in ones and threes, and I think the new guy who's coming from league is struggling to defend at 13. There were times where Ikitau had to mark 3 or 4 players by himself. And obviously, that puts a lot of strain on you as a 12 because the connection is not there with 13. And now he leaves you stranded. He leaves you hanging. He's very good with ball in hand. Don't get me wrong. He's very good with ball in hand. But when it comes to defensive elements, he is lacking a wee bit there. And he needs to clean that up coming into Rugby Championship. But most importantly now, going into Rugby Championship, where to now for Australia? I've written it down here. Australia needs to win against the Springboks in South Africa for them to gain any positivity or to clean up any of their negative acts. They need to win next week. Yes, I understand that. But against the Springboks in South Africa, they need to win. Hugh, what do you think? Or if they don't win, then I think Joe Schmidt was just there to kind of, I don't know, yeah, they were just buying time to get a new coach because Joe Schmidt, he's been with this team now for two seasons, I think, and we haven't seen a lot of improvement, especially on the defensive side. I thought they've made some improvement on the physicality because which is something they've lacked for some time now, and I hope Will Skelton will be available for Rugby Championship. Gleason will be available. As Salakai Lotto and Pete Samu, they would really be adding some reinforcements into this team to go into the Rugby Championship. But what are your thoughts now for Australia? Where to now for them and Joe Schmidt?
I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Because Joe Schmidt's leaving in 26. The Lions was the big thing to kind of reinvent Australian rugby for that moment. Now that that's gone, look, there's still one more test to go, but it just kind of feels like they're in limbo now, doesn't it? We know that Les Kiss is coming in. So I guess the question is, what are the Wallabies targeting now between now and 26? What is the expectation there? Because we know that Joe Schmidt is such a particular guy and almost like a control freak in terms of what he wants from his team and how he wants everything set up around him. So is it just about the handover to Les Kiss now? It's difficult. I can't see them doing anything on the tour of South Africa, to be honest. I don't know if anybody else can. But what does... Is it now about trying to steal a Bledisloe? Is that the target? I don't know.
Interesting. Because as a coach, I mean, how do you feel now you've let a whole nation down in this tournament? Yes, we can scream and shout about referees, etc., but I mean, you still had a 23-5 lead, because every time the Lions entered the Wallabies 22, they came away with 7 or 5 points. And Wallabies were playing a lot of rugby. Yes, they gained purchase and they scored tries, but I feel like the Lions were just clinical every time they got into the Wallabies 22. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, Wallabies had over 70% territory maybe they should have had a lead of at least 30 plus points in that first half. But I mean, as a coach, Joe Schmidt now, how do you motivate the team to try and win the third test?
Yeah, look, Scoop, it's a part of being a professional. You have to start somewhere. So as much as the series is gone, but this game now coming up should be a main thing for the Wallabies is to finish on a high, and then, like you said, Scoop, target winning one of the games in South Africa. I think there's one game in Cape Town that they can target. I do not see them winning the one in Joburg. I mean, at high altitude, it will be tough. But for me, like you said, they have to try and start somewhere. And now, this is why, for me, guys, I find it very difficult for coaching. Is when you coach, you are being told that you must coach a team. You apply for a job, you got the job, and then you resigned, but then you are asked to keep a little bit longer. It is a very tough situation to be in.
Oh, no. Vickers, how could we lose you? How could we lose you? I think we've lost him for a connection, unfortunately, but I want him to keep that thought. We're going to do something different a bit, Huw. We're going to let Dylan, he wants to ask a question, I believe, or he has some comments to share with us. So we'll give him a time to ask questions to the panel. And then Dabezindo, after that, will also chime in and share his thoughts. Dill, you have the floor. You can unmute yourself and share what your thoughts were regarding the discussions that we've had here today. Dill, are you there?
Sorry.
Yeah, Vickers, I can hear you.
Sorry, guys. My internet, my VPN is killing me. Okay. So I was just saying that for me, it's a difficult situation to be in as a coach because regardless of the results, you're already stopping the job. So, like you said, Scoop, the main thing now is for him to motivate the players to win one of the games so that it's not a whitewash. And then obviously, like you said, target one of the games in South Africa, because I think that's the only way that we can look at his stint in Australia and say it was a positive.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, it's important for. It's one of the things that's why we do the sport we do. That's why we coach. It's because we love the pressure. So the pressure's on his side now, although it's not really pressure, but he will be remembered for his time in Australia. So he better start looking at his obviously pedigree going forward.
Yeah, fair enough. And Dabezindo, you wanted to chime in?
Yes, how's it, Scoop? How's it to everyone? How's it, Huw? Yeah, I just wanted to maybe chime in on that Lions game. I think it was quite a performance from Australia. Just sad the way it went down. But like you guys have discussed at nauseum, I don't think I'm personally too happy with the referee calls. Firstly on the diving into the try, I'm pretty sure I saw Victor Matfield get a try called back in the Rugby Championship. I'm not sure if it was 2010 or 2011. My memory escapes me. But we've had these calls before where a player is jumping over a defender, or Matfield was jumping over a rock. Sorry if it's a bit windy. It's a bit windy here in Joburg. But Victor Matfield was jumping over a rock into the try, scored the try. And the ref called it back, said you can't jump over a rock, you can't jump over a defender in order to score the try. So where is the difference in interpretation there? Because you have a defender that is facing an attacking player, and the attacking player is jumping over the defender. Yes, maybe it's in the act of scoring, but the defender is left with no opportunity to defend. We were speaking about this 2 weeks ago when people were complaining about the line-out move from the Springboks. If the defender has no opportunity to defend, then do we have a game on our hands? So there I'm not happy with that one. And then that final call on Carlo Tizzano, you know what? I think it's marginal. I'm not happy with it. I think it was head contact to the back of the head. I thought we saw something very similar in 2022 with Bandi Aki on Sabelo Sanatla. Bandi Aki was given an 8-week ban for the exact same tackle. So I'm not seeing the difference there unless, Scoop, you're able to show me where there's a difference between the Bandi Aki clear out on Sabelo Sanatla and the Jack Morgan clear out on Carlo Tizzano. I don't see a difference between those two calls. But then my final thoughts were just the English press. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The last people to be talking about sour grapes and physicality, just the English press have been comical since the final whistle. You know, you've had guys in the Telegraph, you've had your podcasters, you've had your YouTube channels, all telling the Australians that they need to just eat the sour grapes and that they should not be sour losers. And all of a sudden, when the call is going the way of the English, now they're the ones to preach about, you know, let the final whistle die. If I'm not mistaken, the RFU has an open case today, 27 July 2025, still today, 2 years after this World Cup semi-final. They're still trying to investigate whether Bongi said the K word or not. Like, they're the last people to be speaking about people having sour grapes, and they're the ones busy calling people so loose. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of, you know, getting that morsel of a win. For me, this is a morsel of a win. And over-celebrating that morsel of a win and then losing the bigger picture. You know, obviously there's nothing at stake here for the players, but the way that the English fans particularly celebrated this win tells me that you will never celebrate winning a World Cup. This will be the biggest win. This was your World Cup final. Because if you're able to steal this win, you know, there's nothing the players could have done. But to take the moral high ground on this win and say, we won fair and square, and see yourselves going to a World Cup after this, I just don't see it. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.
Fair enough. Good rant. Very well-placed comments as well regarding the law, regarding consistency. I think we've covered pretty much all of those things regarding consistency. We've seen where certain guys have been penalized or red carded, yellow carded. I saw a few that were happening in Super Rugby as well, where a shoulder makes contact with the head in a clear out. Like I said, mitigation element is removing it from a red to a yellow or just a penalty because of the low body position, trying to come into the ruck or entering the ruck from that side from Jack Morgan. But from my side, I mean, it's pretty clear. So the interpretation, unfortunately, and I think the heat of the moment and I think the pressure also kind of took its toll on the officiating team in that test match. There were a few things where you thought, I think this is more pressure orientated. There was an element where we had a scrum situation, and I think it was Ellis Gange who was hinging, and it was close to the touchline, and I think Ben O'Keefe was the guy standing near the touchline. It goes down, his elbow is literally pointing to the ground. He pulls down the scrum. The referee says reset. Same thing happens in the second scrum. The referee says reset. Now, we're playing a game of Russian roulette at this point. It's a matter of a gamble. The scrum does the exact same thing, and he calls for a free kick. There, for me, is indecisiveness, not sure who to penalize, but also, as Ben O'Keefe, an experienced referee, standing next to the scrum and not actually calling it and giving the information to the referee. So the referee decides to free kick because the Lions were feeding in the scrum. He gives the Lions the free kick, which doesn't make sense. But I mean, I think, yeah, the stage. Maybe next week we could have, had Australia won this game, maybe next week we could have seen pretty much similar stuff, right? In the final, the big stage, the pressure, it's 90,000 people watching you, over millions on TV watching you, and it's almost as big as, I mean, the Lions brand is the second biggest brand when it comes to rugby. The All Blacks are the biggest brand. Then it's the Lions. Then it's the Springboks. We all know this. So at the end of the day, the pressure was on to the referees as well. We might as well take that into consideration anyway. Lastly, guys, Currie Cup took place yesterday. So be sure to catch on some results. I watched the Lions versus the Sharks. My goodness. It was like kids versus adults. Mpumelelo there. Mzwake Ngosi doing a great job with the Lions. They played their URC team, and the Lions were grooming some of the youngsters to come in. And obviously, well done to the Blue Bulls. My boy Piwe doing some great stuff there. So watch out for Mzwake and Piwe as the next up-and-coming coaches in South Africa. And I think this is Mzwake's Curry Cup to lose, because he took the Lions to the final last year. They only lost it also with a very dubious call in the end there. But nonetheless, be sure to catch all the action of Curry Cup taking place over the couple of weeks. And we've got MPC in the following week. But C. Vickers can no longer join. But yeah, we'll leave it just there. But thank you, Huw. Thank you, Vickers. But you'll listen to this back during the week anyway. Guys, make sure you follow Hugh Griffin. Check out the conversation he had with Swiss de Brain, the current women's coach for the Springbok team that's going to the Women's World Cup in a month's time. 1 month until kickoff. 1 month until kickoff. Let's see if the South African women's team can continue with the winning mentality. Under 20s World Cup, 2023 Rugby World Cup, Sevens World Champions. Now it's up to the women to complete the sweep. Green and gold sweep. Thank you, Huw. Pleasure having you on board as usual. But guys, we'll put more threads coming to you from my timeline. And make sure you follow us also on Spotify, Apple Pod, and YouTube as well. Thanks, Griff, and thank you guys for all listening. Thanks, Dabezinto, for your chiming in. And yeah, have a wonderful Sunday. Have a wonderful week ahead.
Thanks, guys.